Hi everyone! Hi Nikori! Hey Kiraf! Let's switch it on up! Welcome back for WIP Wednesday! Hi Sunny Day! Eyes of Jack! Hello, hello! How are you doing? Oh, wrong account signed in. You watching in chat too? Oh, hi chat! Hi chat in chat. Oh no, that just sounds like Chad in chat. Let's not go there. How's everyone doing? Try to make the whole space a little bit cleaner so that we have more art and less junk on the screen. So, let's see. Actually looks quite nice. I guess BE voice? Yeah. Yeah, the BE voice. I like that. Let me get Discord up in here as well so that I can actually get some context. I love that everyone's watching together. All right. Okay, random question of the day. Where would you go if you had to if you were going on vacation? Where would you go? Did you get a new cam? No, it's just I changed the position a little bit and it's a little bit more zoomed in now instead of just a wide angle. But yeah, like, where would you go? Sunny Day saying Madagascar. That's an interesting one. Have you seen those amazing cliffs? No? What? I honestly have no idea of Madagascar. Like, at all. I have no idea what it looks like. Like, that's a thing that I've never looked up to. Like, you know, I have like a general idea of like countries in Africa, right? And I have like a general idea of like countries in the Middle East, but then I've never looked at Madagascar. It's a great shout. Apparently they got amazing cliffs as well, so it'd be nice to check out. Giraffe is saying Japan, if I want to travel. Egypt for chilling out. Yeah. Japan would be a good one. We've been thinking about going to Japan for like a couple of years now. But yeah. It's a little bit expensive, you know? Especially on a tight budget. Hi Andrea! Egypt for chilling out. That's awesome. Got New Zealand as well. Nice. That's awesome. I've seen some countries, most of them in Europe. Oh, Sia just wants to go to the beach in Greece. You know, like it's not any beach. It has to be in Greece, you know? Oh, I'm drinking my frappe over here. So I'm on my evening routine as well. Look up Tinzi de Bahamaraha? Oh my god, I butchered that. Bemaraha National Park images to see the cliffs I mentioned. I am gonna do that after the stream. That sounds awesome. I would love to see that. Well, I'm actually curious. Let's have a look now. And then we'll dive into some feedback. Gas car travel guide. Oh my god, what the fuck? Oh. That looks awesome. That looks so weird. What? Looks like another world. That's awesome. Thank you so much for suggesting that. We got the baobab trees. Love those. I had to make those for a game that I worked on. They're big water reservoirs used by elephants. Love that. Cool fact. A dodgy height map. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, if we have to look at it in environment art terms, a very dodgy height map for sure. Yeah, this is some pertinent noise stuff going on, you know? That looks crazy. Oh my god. It's awesome. I love this picture as well, looking up. Awesome. Let's say that's a great way to start a stream. I'm gonna think about like random questions that I can just throw at you whenever I do like one of these streams. How does that sound? Cool. Oh, this is awesome though. Like this is just like a really quick burst of inspiration. This is cool. That is cool. Okay. Anyway, time to look at some work, shall we? First up, we've got Carlito in here. Patent pending on that name. We'll figure that out. Let me see. So, Carlito's working on a secret garden. Let me see if there's anything specific that I can give feedback on. Cool ideas, let's give them a try. Some people are already sharing like really good feedback, or like really good ideas and feedbacks in there. I don't know if you're in the chat, Carl. Do you want to have something specific that we can look at? Like some specific feedback? Oh, wait, hold up. Feedback-wise, just looking for what peeps think the roof should look like. Oh, okay. Yeah. The whole roof structure, right? So, yeah, this is an interesting one. Because I saw you playing around with a couple of variations, right? You had one which was more where this section was closed, right? Actually, get the layer over here. You had a section where this one was closed, so this would be like a normal roof, and then you had like the wooden beams coming out. I think honestly, to me, what is gonna inform that choice is gonna be what kind of route you want to take it, right? If you wanted to have it as like a kind of a secret garden, as you're saying it, right? Then maybe doing something more in terms of still keeping it a bit more on the pristine kind of angle, right? And just like go really overboard with like the foliage. So instead of having the foliage only on the roof, like maybe have ivy like almost all the way scattered. And oh, I got an idea. So you could have ivy scattered on these pillars, right? So you have like some wild ivy growing. Or maybe if you want to make it like really cozy and like really Mediterranean, what you could maybe do. Oh, and the ivy here would be with like a closed roof, in my opinion. I think if you want to do it the opposite way, right? Then you could do something where you maybe keep the beams, but you use them as a trellis for grapes, and then have like grapes growing all the way on top of the ceiling or something like that, right? So then you're more leaning into the cozy Mediterranean vibes, or like a garden in southern of France, right? Something that is like maybe a little bit more maintained than what you're going for now. So to me, it would be the choice, right? So the first choice would be like overgrown / hidden. I mean, there's more choices, right? And like the second one is more like cozy / secret. Where to me, in this context, that means that if you're going for a cozy slash secret, like this is almost like someone's secret garden where they just chill out, drink wine, and all that kind of stuff, right? So with the grapes, I think what you can do there is it opens up like a lot of variability, right? You can still let a lot of sunlight in, but you have something that kind of covers the top part, right? Because I don't think this open structure kind of works really well. So I feel like you would almost need to cover it up with something. And you could kind of do that with this sort of structure that has like wooden slats on top of it, right? And then the grapevines like kind of grow all the way around it, kind of thing. It could be a cool one. And then also like they add like a nice pop of color, right? Like imagine having like the very purple grapes just hanging from the ceiling. That could be really cool. Andrea saying maybe white outdoor cloth curtains that blow in the wind. Yeah, something that could also be cool if you're not going for the grapes, right? I think that could also work. Where you have like the beams and then in between it you have like pieces of fabric. Right? That's also something that they do with I don't know what the word is. Like it's a pergola? I guess? That could also be something. So I'm gonna make a note of this, so... White cloth, with the grapes. Right? Yeah, Sia's saying the same thing, like a pergola type of thing. But that's the thing, that's the feeling that we're getting now, right? With like the open wooden beam structure, and then if you hang stuff between it, like either the grapes or the cloth, like you're getting like a very kind of Mediterranean feeling to me. And then if you make it like really sunny, you know, and you maybe have like like maybe you have rolling hills in the background where you see like lavender growing or something like that, right? It depends, again, it kind of depends on what kind of vibe you're going for, right? What are you... Oh my god, I can't even pronounce that word, Sia. Bougainvillea? I've never heard of that word. Oh my god. Jackie's saying, I like the idea of the hanging baskets. Some nice plants with drooping leaves. Yeah. Yeah, like you can do some cool stuff with that. Like, could be like white cloth, like the grapes hanging. I'm thinking about my my parents' garden now, where they have like these colorful lanterns, like hanging in between like all the beams as well. It might be like a little bit too noisy if you then combine that with the grapes, right? But it could be interesting if you do that with the white cloth, for example, and then have like the colorful, yeah, colorful like paper lanterns, exactly. Yeah. Could be an interesting one as well. Again, it kind of depends on what you're kind of going for, right? Like maybe we'll add like a third one in here. And it's like... Southern France, right? Like just really going all in on like the very Southern France, like Mediterranean kind of style. Could be very interesting. You could make like a cozy class slash secret kind of thing where you have like the white cloth and like the lanterns and all that stuff hanging from it. Yeah. It all depends on what you want to do with it, right? Because I know in the beginning you wanted to keep it like very close to the actual location that you're basing it on. So maybe this deviates a bit too much from it, right? Yeah, there's a bunch of options here. Yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff with like these hanging bits of foliage, right? You can add a lot of organicness into the whole thing. It'd be very interesting. Oh, they're like the flowering ivy. Ah, okay. Yeah, that could be cool. Just anything with a bit of color, right? Can do a lot. Because if we zoom out to the color and if we actually look at our little navigator up here, right? I just added here because it kind of mimics the effect of like squinting your eyes where you only see the values. A lot of it is pretty brown, right? So maybe pushing the values more and making it more vibrant and like colorful and it could be something. Oh, was it this stuff then, Sia? Oh, I just noticed that the chat is like right in front of it. Yeah. Yeah, that could be cool. Yeah, I think it's in... Because I've seen you playing around with it, Carl. I think that's just the first thing you'll need to kind of figure out, right? Like, what kind of vibe and what kind of story you want to go for. So yeah. Here's a bunch of options. Oh, Andrea is going full in on like the Mediterranean vibes, and she's even adding like a charcuterie board to help liven up the area and like not make it like, oh, there's been some gardening, but also like, oh, people actually just had their lunch. Could be, yeah, it could be very interesting if you want to tag that into like the southern France section of it. That's a great idea. I love that. Wait, I'm just gonna see how the hell do I write that? Boo. Nice. And then charcuterie. Charcuterie board. Just, yeah. That's actually a great idea, right? Because in terms of the vibes right now, what we're getting is that someone's been doing some gardening, but then kind of just, like, left it again. Right? So I think what you could do is have the sun kind of highlight all of this stuff, right? Let me just make a new layer. Like, I think the focus could be really interesting if it's here, right? And have, like, some stuff on the table. Maybe there's, like, I don't know, like a bottle of wine, or, like, maybe there's, like, a wine glass or two, you know, like, on the table. And that becomes your focal point. And then the gardening stuff would actually be a bit more in the back, so you could have, like maybe the shovel in the corner here. Right? And then the wheelbarrow would be like against the wall over here, something like that. Yeah. I think maybe even not focusing on the story, this could be like a great thing to kind of solidify what you want to focus on too, right? Like, what is the focal point going to be? Because I kind of get that it's like, right now it kind of feels like there's no defined focal point yet. Like, there is some stuff happening here. Right? There's some stuff happening here. Like, there's also some stuff happening here. You got the birds here. But it kind of feels just like very spread out. But yeah, there's a lot of options here though. Yeah. Should be cool. Jack is saying, my partner is a big fan of string of pearls plant, but unsure of the native country. A quick Google says South Africa. String of pearl plant. Have a quick look. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see. So it's just like these kind of things. Very unique shape. Yeah, cool. Cool little plants. Look like peas to me. Yeah, exactly. Sunny Day is saying maybe some additional props could help with the direction, like gardening gloves placed down, if you want to go for the break time lunch vibe. Oh, that's actually an interesting one. Like the break time lunch vibe, right? Where they just put some plants together. Like you could almost approach it from like how are we gonna do this? Oh. So this is like breakfast. Right? And then you would have like the two pots here because they've been doing some like little plant pots. You would have the two plant pots here. They would have like a bag of like soil or something. Right? And then maybe like a rack with like a bunch of other plants over here. Right? Maybe just showing that they're currently chilling out and that they're gonna get back into gardening. It could be, yeah, it could be an interesting one. Be an interesting one. Let's add that to the thing too. That break time lunch. With a bunch of good ideas here. Love it. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Let me actually note down the thing here, right? Like if what I. Oh, I like this little red robin here. It's cute. Love him. Love that guy just sitting there. Yeah, it's a very cute scene. I think honestly that's the way to go, right? Like go full on like vibrant colors, like try to have just like, hey, this is like a couple having breakfast together, maybe doing some little gardening together, like that kind of vibe, right? Where it's just like all in on the coziness. I would probably try to lean in as much as I can with that one. Again, it's up to you, right, Carl? But I feel like you're pushing it in that direction anyway. I think you just, yeah, just double down on it. Oh, definitely want to keep the birds. Yeah, they look cute. If I would say, like, number one would be to think about the story, right? I think that's gonna be the most important thing. Second thing is gonna be defining the focal point, which is highly likely that's gonna be the table, right? Highly likely, and then just go into like supporting assets. Right? And with supporting assets, I mean, what do you need to make in order to support the story in number one? Right? That's the way that I would look at this. Because right now it's just very generic at gardening, right? You can do a little bit to elevate this for sure. I mean, it was also kind of, it transformed over time, right? Like it was like, oh, I'm gonna do this like secretive garden, and then it kind of turned into like, I'm gonna deviate from my original idea, and it's kind of evolving over time. So yeah, keep pushing it. Great stuff though, Carl. For the people that are new here, or like the people that were here last time as well, normally I save these out. Last time I didn't do it because I had some technical issues, but this time around I'm gonna post them into the chat afterwards, like in the community as well, so I'm gonna make sure that that's back. Yeah, Carl, I think keep it up. I honestly love what I'm seeing here, you know? Like, I like how cozy it starts to feel, and yeah, I feel like you want to go cozy, but you're kind of hesitant if it's not gonna be enough. I think that's my feeling, right? I can be totally off on that, but I think just go with your gut, man. Like, go full on what you want to make it. Definitely want to keep the birds. Yeah, the birds are so cute. Cool. Thank you so much, Carl. Thank you so much for posting this up, and best of luck, buddy. If there's anything else, you know where to find me, right? Hey, Coffee Diction! Welcome back to the chat. Thank you, no worries. Next up, we got Brandoom. Brandoom is a new member of our community, so welcome, Brandoom. Let's get some context first. Let me actually bring it up as we read through it together. Oh, chat is in the way again. Here's an update from last week. Added the first trees I've ever made into the scene. Right now, I'm trying to get them to look good from far away. Oh, okay. Yeah. I got a tip for that. I'm currently working on foliage, blah, 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 to fill up the space. I'm hoping to get this done by the end of the month. Feel free to comment or ask any questions. Okay, cool. So, let's dive into that tip first. So, if you wanna make stuff look good, like especially foliage from a distance, you have to look into like how they're getting MIP, like the MIP map settings of the actual texture. This means that if you go to your texture on your actual leaves, right? You have to set that to, so on the leaf texture, you have to set the MIP map generation settings to no MIP maps. That's the easiest fix. Because what usually happens is, like, on a lot of fine detail, which is like especially these pine needles, right? It's gonna cull it out over a distance. So if you set it to no MIP maps, it's basically just gonna retain the texture map as is without culling everything out over distance. There's also other options in there. You can also sharpen or blur it as well, where, as a rough understanding, sharpening will retain it over longer distance and blurring it will cut it out quicker, I think. So either do no MIP maps or sharpen for those textures. If I can actually write it down. Right, so that's going to be a very important one already. The difference is huge. In my scene, like, if I turn it to like standard MIP maps, my trees almost look dead. But if I turn it to no MIP maps, it's like a full lush scene. You know, I don't have actually, that would be a good one to kind of showcase, because I don't have any screenshots comparing the two, but that would be good. Yeah. I mean, I think saying that, what you can also do to help this is just make the trees like a little bit more dense as well, right? Because it feels like the density is all here and there's way less density up here, right? So you kind of want to have more of a gradient where, like, you have all the density here and then it kind of goes up all the way to where it's like, I don't know, let's say 0.25 of the density, right? And then the density down here is like an equal 1. Hey, Bulborb! How are you doing? So yeah, that's the way that you should approach trees, and I feel like it goes from like 1 to like 0.5 here, and then it just like basically like goes down to like 0.25, let's say, for the rest of the tree. So having that as like more of a gradient is already gonna help. More bronze. Well, like these are like the leaf, or like the branch meshes, right? Right. That's also gonna help like the density of the actual trees as well. For sure, that's gonna help with that. Because yeah, like this is very clear, right? Like you have a lot of density down here, but then as soon as you get to here, like there's almost nothing for the entirety of the tree. So that definitely needs to be like more of a gradient. So that's that's on the foliage side of things, right? Like that's definitely gonna help already. Let's have a look at the rest of the scene though. I do like where this is going though. I mean, I'm making a medieval scene myself as well, right? So over the past 2 years when I'm making the scene that I'm doing, I've got very picky about the stuff when it comes to like medieval places, right? What you could probably do to make it like a little bit more realistic is think about the houses and how they're constructed in the context where they're sitting right now. What I mean by that is we're almost in like an open plain, right? We don't have a city wall, there's nothing to defend these people, but still they live in like a 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 4-story house, right? Those amount of stories, that is for like a well-developed city center, especially in the medieval age, right? You would most likely see those in like well-developed cities that are like very organized. You wouldn't necessarily see that outside of the city. So I think if you want to do like a quick fix, then you can either build like a perimeter around this, right? So that this shot actually becomes you looking into the perimeter wall into the city. Could be a thing. Or you just remove like these 2 stories and then just push the roof down. Right? That could also be an option. I never would have thought of that. Yeah. Like I said, I've gotten very picky and very in-depth with all this stuff, right? Because if you look at there's actually, I'll need to show this. There's actually like a great resource from like the City Museum of Berlin, because I'm looking into this stuff myself as well. I'm gonna add that into the chat too. But they basically scanned like medieval houses, right? And this is like a settlement that kind of has like the same scale or like the same amount of buildings that we're seeing in this scene. And all these buildings are just like single floor, like almost rounded huts, right? The reason why they're rounded is they were like way cheaper to build, because this sort of like Tudor style building where they have like the wooden frames and the wooden beams in the middle, that would only develop later. And again, also for the bigger cities again, right? So I think in this case, like it might be best if you just build like a wall around it. And they actually have like a great little segment of a wall here that's very interesting to look at. Just in terms of like the way that they build a wall, right? So I'm gonna add this to the chat so that you can check it out too. That would be... I mean, I'm using the same resources, right? So I'm also exploring this myself. So yeah. I would say that is going to look like a little bit less impressive, right? Because you're not working with tall buildings, but I think it can actually humble the whole place down, where this is like a fledgling city that is still putting in like a ton of work to actually make it like an actual big city, right? That being said, that's like more on like the storytelling or like the foundational side of things, right? And I know that this might sound like you have to do a big change, right? That's why I proposed those two solutions, where you could either put like a wall and like retain the height of the buildings, or cut down the height. Because I also don't expect you to just like throw out these buildings and like make like a new building from scratch, right? Because let's be realistic, you need to get this done by the end of the month. That's not gonna happen. So to me, like those things are like quick fixes, right? And very approachable ones in terms of like the actual time invested in it, because you have a trim sheet with wood already that you can just apply to this wall and you have a wall there, right? Like that's not going to take you too long. So it'll lead to lower housing. Then let's go over some quick stuff, right? You can actually do something really cool here with the path that you have, and is reusing the texture that you have for the ground floor and darkening it up a little bit. Just to make it stand out more from the rest of it, right? Because I think right now you have one floor material and that's it. I think the floor material looks great. I think you just have to switch it up, right? So normally you would have like a path here that's like a different color. And then you would have like grass surrounding this as well. So you would probably have like a grass material too. But again, I think the grass is less important in this case. I think the darkened floor material can actually just help you, or like you can even, it doesn't have to be darkened. I think lightening it up like a little bit could actually help more. Right? And that's also going to help the composition and lead you into the scene a bit better as well. Hi Puns! How are you doing? Puns is asking if I have a specific deadline when you're working on a large or medium personal project. No, because I'm very privileged, right? I don't have to work with deadlines anymore. So, but if I was in a position where I'm looking for a job, I would definitely set deadlines. And my deadlines would depend on how quick I want to switch jobs or get into the industry, right? So let's say I have a timeline of 1 year, and I want to make portfolio projects. I want to have multiple ones as well, because one is not going to save my portfolio. So I'm going to make at least 3. Let's say we're starting from scratch, right? And those 3 are not going to be big scenes. They're going to be probably smaller props with maybe a diorama at the end. Right? So kind of everything depends on what your goal is and what you're working towards. Awesome, thanks. No worries. Thank you for the question as well. So yeah, you could lighten this floor material, and then use that for driving people in it into your scene. And then let's say we have like a wall over here, right? Be like very interesting in terms of like a framing device as well. Kind of leading the player more into the space. So yeah, that could be very cool. Let me think about some quick stuff before, because you want to get it done at the end of the month, right? What I would do is, because it's a university project, right? So the only thing that you care about is the actual look and feel of things. What I would do is combine these meshes, combine into like a static asset, and then start sculpting the geometry, or basically moving the geometry, so that you can play around with the silhouette. And this is all inside of Unreal, right? Like, you use the modeling toolkit to just go in and like change the silhouette up, so that you're not stuck with like these rigid roofs, but you're actually gonna have like some nice curves in the roofs, and also like some crookedness in the buildings, right? Like, give them like a lot of character, you know? Start playing around with the geometry that you already have. Which you can't really do that with modular stuff, right? Especially the way that you're building it. Not that there's anything bad with it, right? Because I'm basically constructing the buildings in the same way, but it's hard to then give these extra touches of character that are gonna make it feel very lived in, you know? So playing around with the silhouette, it's going to be important here. Just using the modeling tools, right? Very fitting medieval style music playing right now. Yeah, this is my playlist for when I'm working on my medieval scene, so very fitting. Because working in a modular way here, like, it's making everything feel like very static and very rigid. I think you can score some like easy wins by just going into the modeling tools and like skewing the thing up a little bit, right? Right, so if you do that, that's gonna give like this whole thing like way more character. That's going to be a quick win as well, so that's not going to take too long. Couple of quick things. More scale variation in the grass. You can do that again very quickly by going into the reapply settings into the foliage tool in Unreal Engine, and then just setting like a randomized scale and playing around with that. Very easy, you don't have to repaint everything, you're just going over the stuff that's already painted, and then you're good to go. And you set something like 0.8 to like 1.2 or something like that, right? So that you get like some scale variation. It's gonna be nice. There's already some, but I think you can play around with it a bit more. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. So if you're going for a top-down shot like this, I think that's the time where you need to add like a grass texture, because it's very apparent that you don't have one now, and it's kind of very visible, right? So I would probably try to if you're going for top-down shots, that make it very apparent that you have like a large surface that you're working with, but it's only using the one texture. That's when you need to switch things up and add more texture variation. So for top-down shots, right? More texture variation. Yeah, and then I'm just making some notes here as well, trying to get everything written down. So add more character to the buildings as well. I'm honestly thinking that for now, since you already have to finish like some of the other assets as well, might keep it here. Like there's some really easy wins in here. Like the really easy wins are like just adding like another texture variation, right? That's just taking the same texture that you already have and changing the color of it. Very quick one. Changing the building style or adding a wall. That could definitely make like a big change. Oh, hi Tim. Thanks for going over my work. Just at work, and I hopped on now during my break. We'll have to rewatch all the feedback later. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll share this whole page with you later as well, and then send you a link to this recording too. Thanks for popping in here, man. Appreciate it. So yeah, like there's some easy wins. There's some stuff that takes a little bit more time, but it's definitely worth it. The combining into static assets and like making the silhouettes of the buildings more pronounced and like varied is definitely going to be like a huge win, because that's to me that's what the medieval age kind of stood for, right? Like very handmade, everything's handcrafted, like nothing's straight, everything's crooked, that kind of stuff. So going to be very helpful. Yeah, and then we kind of talked about the foliage. That's also going to be a massive help. Yeah. Good luck. I'm going to keep it here. I think this is already like more than enough to kind of get you going. So thanks for popping in, and I'll send you like all the stuff you need after the stream. Thank you so much for sharing your work as well, Brandoom. Appreciate that. Love me a medieval scene. My final project for uni is about completed. Just got all the fun write-ups to finish. Oh shit. The Middle Ages had lower curb appeal standards. Lower curb appeal. Oh my god. I'm too dumb to understand some of this stuff. Like, honestly. Like, I feel like sometimes my intelligence just dips on streams, so... I'm sorry for not understanding that second favorite. I'm in the middle of a small scene using the PCG, and I gave myself a 2-week deadline. Otherwise, I would never finish anything. Yeah, that's a good thing, right? I think if you're experimenting, and if you're just trying to figure out like a new skill set, giving yourself like a shortened timeline to get to the core of things is definitely going to be helpful. So that definitely works. Puns is asking if I played the Crysis games. Yes, I did. I was a big fan of Crysis 2 and 3. I know they're making a reboot. I'm curious what they're gonna do with it. I don't know. I'm very skeptical on reboots these days, you know. Okay, so next up we got Andrew Whiteman. Let's have a look. Let me get some context here. I think honestly this is going to be very quick. because we kind of looked at Andrew's work last time and made giant improvements. And in the meantime, he worked on the axe and the chimney. So there's... I'm going to point at two quick things. Two easy wins that can help you. And then we're going to be moving on from this. The first one is, on the axe, you have to watch out for your bake. Right? Because the actual normal information, especially around here, makes the whole axe more blobby. I know that you fixed the silhouette of the axe, but it wasn't actually an issue on the silhouette of the axe, but actually on the geometry in between, right? So, what is that? Like a very blobby bake, let's call it that, I think. So you got to be careful for that. That's kind of what I meant last time. And then on this chimney over here, there's actually a quick win that we can do here. It's going to be a little bit intense, but what you can do is, if you have a tileable texture, I'm assuming that this is a tileable texture, you can actually use the height map of that tileable texture to actually displace the geometry. And that can give you like a little bit more volume to this whole thing. So you can actually, if you look at the word displace, like in whatever tool you use, you're gonna find something that I'm talking about. Because right now, the issue here is that you can really see the geo, right? So you have this like little transition and it goes straight down again. You kind of want to avoid that, like in every 3D scenario, because that's what gives 3D, like the stereotypical 3D look, right? So we kind of have to move away from that as much as possible. So yeah, this would be a quick one, just to use the height map to displace the geometry. You will have to decimate it down depending on the amount of geometry that you give it. Because normally the way that it works is, step one is you give it more geometry. Usually with something like a subsurface division, like or like a subdivision modifier or something like that, or turbo smooth or whatever you call it. And then you displace it using that height map, and then you would decimate it down. And decimating it down is just removing a lot of the unnecessary geo, but it's going to retain the silhouette. So that would be the workflow for something like this, if you're not sculpting it or anything like that, right? If you're just using a tileable. Right. Cool, but I know that you may not... I was actually quite unsure if you wanted to have like a review, like a proper one this time. So I gave you one anyway, right? And tried to get some quick stuff out of the way. So I hope that helps, Andrew. And then we're gonna move on straight to Matthew. It's okay, curb appeal is how the home looks from the street. Oh, that makes sense. Total sense now. Yes. Crytek is working on Crysis 4. Yep. I know. I've seen like the announcements and like the recruitment announcements, I think, right? Gotta get back to work sadly, but I hope everyone is having an awesome day. Oh, thank you so much, Brand. Thanks for popping in. Still worth a shot? Hell yeah, Jack. You gotta fire every shot, you know? Like you never know where you're gonna end up. Next piece of awesome work is from Matthew Wilshaw. Let's again dive into the community channel to get some context. Finally getting back into the scene after a massive break. Tried to rework it significantly as I wasn't happy with the previous composition. A lot of stuff has been reused from the previous iteration and just scaled. So it might look a little strange at the moment. Okay. We love your thoughts and feedback. Nice. Let's have a look at the composition then first, right? Since that's the main thing you focused on. I like this shot. I do like it. Yeah, looks nice. It looks nice. I'm just thinking about like the organization of the scene, right? Like if you are in this tomb, like is this the entrance? This tomb. In this scene, like is this oh, hold up. Is it the entrance? Or exit? Because right now it kind of feels like it is this is kind of like a passageway kind of thing happening here, right? Where you came into this whole structure and then this is on your way out. So I don't know if that was on purpose. It kind of feels weird, but I also don't really have like a direct idea on how to solve it. So because never mind. I was gonna suggest maybe you have some, I don't know, pyramids on the outside. But I forgot to notice that there's a giant freaking pyramid outside already. Okay, I see what you're doing now. I see what you're doing. I think... yeah, that's cool. That is cool. I'm trying to think what we can do more with it, right? Because I do like it. Maybe making it like even more pronounced and have like two of them. Right? Where you're going like kind of overboard. Maybe, oh, maybe it's overthinking, but maybe they're still working on the pyramids. Might be an interesting thing. That's more background stuff, right? Yeah, I like what you have going on with like the fog, right? Like the very subtle ground fog, like the ground haze. The only thing that doesn't really make sense to me, or not at this point at least, is that we're seeing a lot of smaller rocks, but we're not really seeing like a lot of sand, right? Like I would expect, because this seems to be lower than like the actual level, that I would probably see like a lot of sand buildup, right? Like the bottom of the stairs like almost being covered by sand instead of like the little pebbles. That's the way that I would approach it. Right, because also pebbles, they kind of make everything like really noisy. And I don't really mind it. I think if you were to scale them down like to 25% of what they are now, right? And make them like kind of small little pebbles, that could be interesting. Like 25% scale of what they are now. right? Because yeah, I think that could work better. I think also one other question, and I know here we go again, like maybe not the story in this case, right? Maybe that's not the right way to approach it, but what is this place? Right? Where, or like more precise, where does this fit into the Egyptian culture? Right? Because it can't really be a tomb, right? Because that's why they build pyramids. So is it kind of like a passageway of some sorts? Or maybe it's like, I don't know, the first thing that came to mind was like, that's kind of the same thing as the pyramids as well, right? And this is with very limited knowledge on like Egyptian culture, right? So don't take my word for like absolute truth here. But like what I was thinking about could maybe be cool is instead of having the statues here at the front, is maybe having them to the side, and this becomes more like a place of worship, right? Where this is like a specific tomb for like a specific Egyptian god, and then this is the place where people bring offerings, right? And then you can kind of do something interesting with the composition. Let me see if I can draw it out like real quick. So if that is your frame, and you have split it up into like 3 equal parts. You have the door frame over here, right? That's where people come in, and they come down the staircase. And then the other part could be like where they make their offerings here. On like a little pedestal, and then that pedestal is like surrounded by like 2 giant statues or something, right? So I'm basically moving the statues from the entrance to like next to the little pedestal where people make their offering. Right? And then the pillars could maybe be at the entrance, right? We're gonna have like the pillars here. Because the statues do draw like a lot of attention to themselves, right? Whereas the normal pillars don't do that. So I think if we shift them around, then we could push them towards the entrance, because the entrance, because of the high contrast, is going to draw a lot of attention to itself anyway. And then have the 2 statues like around here, like an altar. Right, like Andrea is saying in the chat. That's a better word for it. Right, and that's gonna give the whole place like a bit more purpose. I think in my overpaint here, the 2 things feel like way too close to each other. So I think I would even spread them out more if I can, so that you have like a gap between them. Right? Or maybe shift the gate more towards the left side, so that you have like breathing space in between here, like a little bit more. But something like that could maybe be more interesting, right? Or yeah, I was kind of thinking. Like maybe this is maybe this is like the entrance to like their kingdom or their domain or whatever you want to call it, right? But yeah, I don't know. That doesn't feel too strong for me, you know, like. Does it have to be, though? Kind of struggling with this one. Because I can see the appeal, right? Like if it's the entrance to the kingdom and you have like the two statues like basically welcoming you into the kingdom, that could be like a very interesting take as well. So yeah, maybe I'll let you figure this one out, Matt. Like, what do you think about it? Because it could be like an altar if you want to have it more like just it by itself, right? But I don't. The more that I start thinking about it, the entrance would also be cool. Hey, Antonio! So yeah. Yeah, that's some quick feedback. I know that you're still working on like a lot of stuff, so I'm probably not gonna go too deep into it. It's also maybe the candles to me, like they do feel like they're more leaning towards the altar kind of thing. Right? Because it's very ceremonial kind of stuff instead of like entering. For this scene, it's almost like a portal. I feel like it should be some kind of portal effect where you step into ancient Egypt, so it's not leaving the area, but rather moving into some place interesting. But of course, that's just possible storytelling. Yeah, that would only kind of make sense if the... I like the idea, right? But that would only make sense if the stuff before the portal is something completely different than the stuff behind it. Right? Because there needs to be a contrast. So if the stuff before the portal was like very modern, right? If it was like a very clean white lab and then you have like this ancient portal and then you see like the pyramids in the back, that would be kind of cool. But then at that point, like the whole scene is completely different, right? To me, it seemed like the exit is up high altitude-wise, like on the side of another pyramid. But if that was the case, then you wouldn't really see the other pyramids, right? Well, I guess it kind of depends on how tall they are. See what you're saying. Yeah, like the candles definitely make it feel like very ceremonial. At least to me. So it has that vibe. I'm curious what you think about this, Matt. Very curious. So I'm just gonna leave it here. I had like a couple suggestions. Feel free to do with them as you please. As always. And I'm curious. I'm curious what you're thinking about. Yeah, honestly, like going back to what you set out to achieve with this thing, right? Like to make the composition like way better. I love it. The composition has like a very good feeling to me now. Especially this one, right? Like the main shot. Feels real nice. Might as well just cut out all the rest, right? Because it didn't really do an overpaint and all the other stuff. Yeah, this is nice. Yeah, I agree. 100%. So yeah. I'm sure that we're gonna talk about it more in the week. We'll probably see each other in like the Discord chat. Yeah, thanks so much for putting your work on here, Matthew. Like, appreciate it. And hope this was helpful. Let me know if I can help you with anything else. And thanks for posting it as well. We're gonna move on to Mr. G. I think, wait, we're gonna switch some things around here. I'm gonna move on to Sia first. Let's go through Sia's work. I'm excited to see it develop. Yeah, me too. Like, I mean, it has a very good foundation, right? And I know where it came from, like before. Not as a hint like, oh, it was way worse before, but I can see the evolutions behind the scene, right? It's very interesting. Okay, Cia is asking for some feedback on my grass material. I'm trying my hand at designer and I'm having a bit of a rough time with it. Trying to get very painterly, an almost fuzzy look of Phoenix Rising, but I'm hard time balancing the softness with not losing detail. Yeah, I think this is an interesting one, right? Because I think what they do is they still have a lot of shapes in there, like a lot of very well-defined shapes. Oh, someone's getting a package. What? Nacho coming in to steal some of the attention. Okay. Anyway. So, I was saying that even if you look at the textures here, right, they still have like defined shapes in there, right? I think it's just because of the base color being so similar between all of these that they kind of blend in together, right? So that's what we're kind of seeing here. Because if you look at this, like they still have like the individual blades in there. It's just because it's so noisy. Well, it's not noisy. There's so many of them that they kind of blend in together, right? So that's the way that I would also approach it. I mean, is it also like a way here? Like, yeah, you can see some tufts, right? That's also the way that I would approach it with this sort of material. Is you start out with a shape, and then you make like combinations out of those shapes, and then use them to scatter them around. So I'll leave you with a couple of tips, right? So first one is the shape. Usually I'll start out with like a square that I then turn into like a rectangle. Right? And then with that rectangle, you can then start transforming that and kind of warping that into something else. Or you could even... Oh, what is probably a better shape? I think there's probably going to be shapes that do kind of this. Right? Like a bell shape, I think. And what you can then do is apply like a gradient from black to white, so that the tops are going to be more visible than the bottom, right? Rotate a waveform. Yeah, there's so many ways of doing this. So you have this like gradient kind of shape. What you can then do is do it in I forgot the name of it. There's generally two ways of doing it, right? So number one would be to transform them yourself. Right? That gives you like a lot of control. Number two is do like a radial scatter, I think. And this scatter is basically gonna scatter. Well, it's gonna scatter them in a circle at first, but you can actually contract that circle to make it more like an actual bunch of like grass pieces, right? Oh, splatter circular. Yeah, that could work. So you can actually contract it to to just have it as like a couple of these meshes, right? So you would end up with like something like this. You know, and then if you then scatter those again, like into like using like a tile sampler, right? Whatever you're using now. That's gonna give you like a much more defined effect. right? And then usually what I do is I'll make like, this is my first variation. I'll make like 3 to 4 variations. And then use all those 3 to 4 variations to then scatter them in like my tile sampler, right? So that you get like some, you can build in some variation with the scale and the rotation, but then you're building additional variation with the tile sampler and the amount of stuff that you're putting into it. And that could literally be, you're just taking this circular splatter, right? And you're just changing the parameters so that you have more of them or like less of them. And then maybe like warping them a little bit, right? So that they don't look like these perfect little things, but that you actually just like start warping them a little bit. And that's how you kind of build up the whole graph, right? And if you realize that, oh, a lot of my sections, a lot of my individual leaves, they actually look kind of like the same, then you need to go back to your original shape and maybe use this original shape and then do a transform on that. And maybe blend it with like other gradients and all that stuff. And that will give you like a lot of complexity with relatively simple shapes. Like a relatively few amount of nodes, right? Tile Sampler has vector and displacement map inputs, so you can plug in the gradient to control the way that the grass blades are shaped. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff that you can do with it. But this is like the base thing that you would do, right? I don't think you have to go with like very crazy painterly shapes to make something look painterly. That's basically what we're getting at, right? I would still go for like the more realistic, what feels a little bit more real in terms of like the shape itself, and then let the colors and all that stuff like stylize it a little bit and kind of blend it together. Yeah, but that's the way that I would approach it. And then there's also an interesting thing, like an interesting observation that I saw here, is they do a blur on their height map. But only on their height map. Right? So the reason why they do that is to help blend it in with other textures. So you're basically giving more information instead of just like these very harsh transitions. I mean, it's not going to be that relevant in your case, right? But that was like just an insight. I don't think it's a softness that you're looking for, because you have like uniform, you have just your uniform terrain, right? You're not blending stuff together. Yeah, I wouldn't blur the color map, because then what you're doing is actually bleeding all the colors over from their original shapes, right? And you kind of want to retain that. I think what you would do instead... Yeah, the height map is more for the vertex pane, for sure. What I would do instead, you can kind of see it here, right? Like, their gradient, the gradient map that they use, I mean, they probably use like a whole bunch of stuff on top of it, right? But like the base gradient map looks like it goes from like this dark-ish, bluish, greenish to like something that we're seeing here, right? Like those two spots. So the colors are actually not that far apart. And I think what you're doing in your color map, because I have the screenshot on my other screen, right, is you're sticking mostly to the one color. And a lot of it like has like a very, very equal transition, where let me see if I can clarify that, right? So your gradient basically goes from your top color So the top color would be something like this, and then the bottom color would be something like this. It basically goes down into like a straight line. Right? But what this work is actually doing is probably doing something more like this. It's like retaining a lot of the color. Like maybe it's going down like very slowly. And then it actually takes like a drop off all the way down. Because you can see like a lot of lush green in there, right? Like it's very lush. And then it has like the deeper dips with like the bluish greenish color. So it actually retains like the very vibrant stuff like for way longer than your stuff does. Especially in contrast, right? But it kind of looks to me. And then yeah, you got some additional bits on here, right? I'm gonna leave you with a very cool trick. This is something that I now love to do because Derek made such a good workshop out of it. The workshop is by the way available on our YouTube channel, but you know this, right? So yeah. But the thing that I learned there is I would have my base grass, right? That would be layer 1. That would be the stuff that we have been talking about for a while. And then number 2 would be like the clovers. And number 3 would be like the little flowers. But what I would actually do with these two is I would have them as like separate atlases. So I would make them as like separate designer graphs. And then add them back into the base using an atlas scatter. So you would basically make these flowers just as like a little atlas, right? Just divide it into 4, and then you have like one flower here, one flower here. Look more like freaking eggs now, but hey, here we are. Right, and then you plug that into the main grass into like number 1. And then you use an atlas scatter to take care of like all the scattering that's happening for you. And it actually, this atlas scatter thing has like a bunch of cool features where you can tell it to like blend in with the base color of the base map actually. So this atlas scatter lets you like crazy blend stuff in and like tweak it like in a very granular manner where it gives you like a lot of control. That's what I love about it. Like it has like a lot of functionality built into it. It's not only scattering stuff on top of your grass, it's also giving you a lot of control over how you scatter it and like the density and like how you blend it in and all that stuff too. Plus, the good thing is if you are making what could be a good example? Let's say you're making a grass variation, right? The only thing that you need to change in your graph is just all the stuff that comes before the atlas scatters, and you got like a new variation. Instead of having to figure out like, oh my god, I made these flowers and now I need to detach them because it's kind of built into like all of it, right? Like the atlas scatter is basically just going to take all the outputs of your main material and then spit out like new outputs. So it's like a way cleaner approach to all of it. Basically, work modular. And yeah, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're doing a flower bed, right? You can then just use that same atlas scatter with like a different base and you got like a completely different texture. All roads lead to modularity. Hell yes. Right, so that's the way that I would approach it. Snowball user Vincent did a breakdown of a moss material like this. Yeah, that's the work we're currently looking at. I mean, not the breakdown that you mentioned, but like this is his work. It does awesome stuff. But that's awesome. Like that would actually be useful if you can track down that that moss material breakdown. But yeah, this is gonna help you a lot. There's the art Bible for Phoenix on this page. It's awesome. Oh, the article. Yeah. No worries. Good luck. Yeah, is there anything else? I think this is good. I think just the approaches that we talked about are going to be very helpful, and then just breaking it down into atlases. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You can't share links in here though. So I don't know if you know each other. I don't think so, right? So maybe what we can do is, I think my Twitter is in the let's have a look. I think my Twitter is in the description. If you want to send it to me, I'll forward it to Sia then, because and share it with our community. That would be awesome. Oh yeah, you can just go into the XP Discord channel. Yep. That also works. All right, awesome one, Sia. Great job though. I love what you're doing with the scene. Like, I see some stuff coming together. It's looking nice. It's gonna be exciting. All right. Next up, we got Suso. Oh yeah, Sia. Sorry. Thank you so much for posting. That's awesome. Next up, we got Suso. Suso is also a new member, so a welcome to the community, first of all. And then we're gonna have a look. At what we can figure out here. This is the concept. So we have the concept on the left, and the first attempt at blocking it in on the right. And then they have like a little video clip as well, where they're running through the level to see if it feels good in terms of proportions. So let's watch that. Okay. Nice one. First attempt on blocking in. This is a good first attempt though. I'll have to say that. I think that the main thing when it comes to the proportions you have to be careful of is that you don't overshadow the architectural elements, which is like the main focal point, with all the rest that's kind of surrounding it. Right? You gotta be careful about that balance, even though in the concept, like, they kind of do the same thing. But I think even in the concept, like, the thing what still makes it stand out a little bit more is that this feels like way chunkier than this thing, right? Because usually with stylization, right? Like if we're thinking about stylized stuff, you wanna really push like the the proportions and like exaggerate some of the shapes, where you can really see that this is like very thick stone, right? So you kind of have to replicate that and make your focal point of the scene like very chunky as well. Like make it very yeah, just very, very hefty in terms of proportions, right? So I would definitely make the architecture make it definitely more chunky. You know, like push the proportions. Right, and you can kind of do that with the gates, because these gates kind of feel flimsy, right? They kind of feel like a little I don't know. I wouldn't trust them, you know? Like they kind of feel a little bit flimsy. But like the ones that we see here, they kind of have that like sturdiness to them, right? Like very chunky again. I think those are like the of less concern, right? But like definitely like the main gate is like really chunky in like the main concept, right? So you wanna replicate that. As like a quick thing, in terms of like proportions, if we're following the concept, the staircase is like, I think you can cut out a section, right? And then maybe angle it up a little bit more as well. So it kind of goes up like this. And then this is where the island would be connecting, right? And this is just in terms of like proportions, right? You don't want to have like this long lead up or like this longer lead up. Like you can make that like really short and concise and then end up with the same kind of proportions as well. Oh, you just found it? So yeah, that's awesome. You'll have to share that with me as well. Curious. Hmm. But yeah, I think overall, like the proportions or like the block out itself is actually really nice, right? Like you got all the main components in there. Some of the things like are a bit bigger than they're supposed to be, but most of the major components are in there. So I think, yeah, like the thing that's also going to be important here is that you add the layering, right? Because that layering is such an important part of this whole scene. Like you wanna kind of emphasize them a bit more. That's gonna be nice. The next thing that I'll say, and this is probably gonna be the last one, is I know that all the stuff that I just said was like in line with the concept art, right? But you also have to look at what you can improve upon the concept art. And I think in here, especially when we're thinking about like a game scenario, what you can do is focus more of your attention, or like focus more of your, yeah, let's say attention, like on the focal point and making that pop a little bit more, right? Like making that stand out. I think even I would probably take the liberty and probably scale this down a little bit more. so that this thing becomes like the main focal point, right? And like stands out like way more. You can play around with like a lot of cool stuff here on like the emissive on the door itself as well, which can help you like direct focus to something. So it's gonna be cool to see how you approach that whole scene. Because you don't have to do what I'm doing, right? That's just as an example. I would kind of look at the concept and then see if I can like push it and pull it to see what makes more sense in like a 3D space rather than a 2D space. I'm just gonna add that here. Because it's totally fine to deviate from the concept. Because I'm gonna let you in on the secret. I don't know how big of a secret it is. We do that all the time, right? I think the best possible outcome comes from actually an environment artist or a prop artist or the artist that's gonna make a 3D version, and the artist that made a 2D version when they're sitting together, and then just talk between themselves and say like, hey, look, if I want to reconstruct this in 3D, I'm probably going to run into issues here. So maybe it would be cool if I can get like an additional angle or whatever, and then maybe throw your ideas into the mix as well, right? Because it's a two-way street. It always has been to me, and I think that's when we come up with like really interesting ideas where, yeah, we just sit down together and you make something cool together, right? The collaboration has always been like a big part for me. So might as well, you know, try to infuse that as much as possible, even though you don't have direct contact with the person, probably. Yeah. This is a great choice of concept, though. Like, I like the scope of it, right? I'm just gonna... I'm gonna make sure I do this because I have no idea what your skill set is, right? Because you're new to the whole community. I'm gonna give you like a couple of pointers to see where you can make some quick wins in terms of like how you're doing stuff. For most of the stone stuff, I would actually think about using a trim sheet. Where a trim sheet is... Wait, I'm gonna make sure that I'm being very specific about this, right? When I say trim sheet and what you need to use it on, or what I would use it on, is all of this stuff. Right? So this stuff here, this stuff, all this kind of stuff down here, staircase. Well, staircase, those can probably be like, you sculpt like one section and then you just duplicate that and like flip it around. Yeah, but the rest of it can all be a trim sheet. And then do a unique sculpt for this thing. Right, so that would be a stone trim sheet for a lot of it. These floating islands, right? They can be modular, and you can just reuse them. So what you can do is you make like 3 variations, right? You make one big one, and then you make like one medium, which looks like a little bit different. Maybe it has like, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit longer or something like that. And then you make like a small one, which you can add like more detail onto, right? And then once you have this entire kit, then you can just like add them to your scene and like rotate them. And yeah, that's the way that I would approach it. Because you don't have to sculpt like every island individually, right? Like you can make a couple of islands, make them look really good, and then just scatter them around. And then, yeah, maybe... This is a trickier one, but maybe you can do the same thing with the trees. Yeah, just throwing some time savers out there. Hopefully they help. Joe Johnson, welcome back. This is Affinity Photo. This is a program that I'm using now to do my overpaints. So right, like these islands, I would definitely reuse them and then reuse the trees as well. And then what this allows you to do is focus most of your attention on like the main focal point and make like a really nicely detailed sculpt out of it and like really go ham with all the details. And then reuse the rest where possible, right? So I would add all this stuff in the trim sheet as well. Even these little things, they can go in there. Yeah. Work smart, not hard. Yeah, I can definitely recommend it. I have the whole suite and I use all of it like almost daily. I still have the older version and I love it. So I can definitely recommend Affinity. But yeah, this is what I would do for this. Like try to reuse as much as possible, right? Like already think about like how you can reuse stuff in this and then you're going to be fine. This is going to be an amazing scene. So good luck on that, Suso. And if there's anything that we can do to help, just let us know. I'll be here every week if you want feedback. So keep me in the loop if you need help, right? And thank you so much for posting it as well. And again, welcome to the community. Happy to have you here. And then last off, we've seen the whole journey of this sword. This is a sword from Mr. G. Fixed the crossguard, made some adjustments to the textures. Yeah, it is nice. I love what I'm seeing here. Like, I like the presentation. We're getting some variation as well. In here. I'm just having a look at all the details. I think the only thing that still stands out, like still kind of trips me up, is the white. Like, I don't know what that is. It almost feels like chalk. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has that feeling. It has that feeling of like someone with chalky hands like touched this blade. It's kind of what it feels like to me. Actually, make that a little bit bigger. Hello? Oh, I can't do that? Okay. Never mind. Yeah, so to me it feels like chalk. I think yeah, reduce this variation, like make it more subtle. And then maybe yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, right? Because also, what kind of irks me too is this feels like really worn, right? So like something happened with this blade, but then the actual blade itself is like almost pristine, right? I would expect like more stuff to be happening here then if this is like very dirty and like very touched, right? I would expect to see more stuff here as well. So it's either pushing the dirt on the entire thing or like reducing the dirt on like this little area, I think. Because it is very pronounced. However, the rest of it is coming together really nicely though. The Damascus pattern, like Andrea's saying as well, looking real nice. I like that you got that nice defined edge on the sword as well. That's looking really nice too. Yeah. This is cool. I knew that this was going to be a quick one. I mean, that's the only thing I can really say something about is just like the variation of the roughness here. Like it feels very very bold, you know? The roughness variation that we're getting there. So maybe yeah, just reducing that. Probably the best option. Yeah, overall really nice though. I like the presentation as well. Nothing too fancy, but I love it. Nice! Thank you so much for putting that up here, Mr. G. I appreciate that. Probably gonna crop out all of this stuff. Dunk. I'd add more sharper stripes. If it's used this way, the guard would probably already have taken a few hits. Yeah, I think that's sort of in line, well, to a certain degree, with what I was saying, right? Like there's a disconnect between how clean the rest of the blade is compared to like the actual guard itself. So I think that's the main, where the main consistency comes from. The main inconsistency, I should say. At least that's what it is to me. But that's a great point, Coffee Addiction. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, let me scrop, please. There we go. Very nice, though. Very nice. Okay. Awesome. It's been almost 2 hours. God damn it, time flies. This has been good, though. I enjoyed this. So, I'm gonna switch over to camera. Ooh, I'm a big boy now. Will I do some cleanup? Thank you so much for sharing that, Snowball user. Like, that's really awesome that it helps you out. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh, this was good. Yeah, last week was a little bit chaotic with like the technical issues that we had, but this week is good. Yeah, and thank you so much for all the good suggestions and like all the good feedback in the chat as well. Like, I love what people had to say this time, so thank you so much. Oh, thanks for the stream, dude. I may drop you a Twitter DM if that's okay. I think I need to pick your brain about something. Yeah, feel free to do so. Don't get mad at me if I don't reply immediately, because Twitter and like other social media things are kind of slowly but surely falling off the cliff in terms of my engagement. So yeah, but I'll try my best. Yeah, thank you so much all for being here. I think I'm just gonna pop off and do some more modeling. I was actually working on some studio stuff before, so I'm gonna keep on doing that. So I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for all for being here. This was awesome. Appreciate you coming over and like having a chat. And yeah, I'll be here every Wednesday to give some feedback. If you want to have your work included in the feedback as well, The best way to do that is to become a member of our community, and then you can take advantage of like the weekly live streams. And there's also like a bunch of other stuff included. So if you want to check that out, go check out beyondextent.com, and I'll see you either Friday or, well, Friday when I'm working on my medieval stuff during the day, or just next week Wednesday. Feel free to pop in anytime. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.